Situated on the Mississippi River, Baton Rouge boasts the best of Louisiana's vibrant culture. Southern hospitality laced with French savoir-faire. But beneath the city's vital surface, a killer lies in wait.
I didn't know that there were people capable of doing such evil.
Random acts of violence.
Baton Rouge was in fear.
An outbreak of panic.
It was almost like a Scud missile. Like, where could this happen? Where could this hit next?
No woman is safe.
I often tell people that this serial killer stole my innocence.
But the race is on, and who will win?
In this case, forensic science was everything.
As the death toll rises, only a revolution in forensic science can reveal the killer and stop the madness. Home to Louisiana State University, Baton Rouge is a big city famous for its small-town feel. Locals take pride in Southern hospitality. So when Gina Green, a 41-year-old nurse, fails to show up for work, her concerned co-workers call police.
Miss Green? Police, are you home?
Detective Ike Vavaser is struck by the trail of clothing scattered throughout the house. What at first appears to be a scene of seduction is something far more sinister.
The fact that Miss Green was found nude in her bed, it certainly made you think as an investigator that perhaps that there was a sexual assault.
A closer look at the body reveals severe bruising on Gina's inner thigh.
The fact that she was covered suggests to me that he had time there, that someone obviously wasn't in a hurry to leave.
By the bed, Vavaser notices that the phone is missing. The only trace of blood at the scene is found on Gina's blouse. The single spot is sent to the lab for analysis. Heavy bruising on Gina's neck indicates she was strangled. Investigators examine the windows and doors, trying to determine how the killer gained access to the house. But there is no sign of forced entry. Hoping to capitalize on the neighborhood feel, police canvassed the area looking for information.
We had no eyewitnesses. We had no suspect vehicles. I mean, virtually whoever had taken her life had slipped in and slipped out unnoticed.
Investigators questioned Gina's friends and family.
Asking those same questions. Who last saw her alive? What were her plans yesterday? What was her plans tomorrow?
But Gina's reputation is clean, and the neighborhood is shocked by her murder.
It is out of place, and which made, in my mind, made her death as unusual.
Investigators comb through the evidence and quickly discover that Gina's purse and her cell phone are missing. Do police finally have a fast track to their killer?
We were able to determine through the service provider of the phone that the phone was still on. To know that her cell phone was on and to truly believe that her cell phone was taken by the perpetrator, that was very exciting. And you begin to think, well, hey, this is maybe the break we need. When you turn on a cell phone, wherever you are, it has to hit a tower. So you're able to, in your investigative efforts, tell What tower did that phone last hit?
Vavasor manages to isolate the last hit near a tower at the city's edge. Using a program called Triggerfish, a high-powered cell site simulator, police locate the cell phone's unique signal and follow it to its source. The evidence is undeniable. The items belong to Gina Green. So does the phone.
You ask yourself the question, why did he take it? Why did he discard it? Why did he discard it here?
Steps ahead of police, the killer has vanished, this time leaving his calling card behind. With no leads, no suspects, and no motive for murder, police have no way to track their killer. Until they get another call.
Darren, can you tell me what happened?
A man reports finding his wife dead.
In Ed's house, and it's like blood everywhere, man. Like.
Inside the family home, investigators find 21-year-old Gerilyn Dotto. She is brutally beaten, her throat slashed. District Attorney Tony Clayton joins detectives at the scene.
You have to take your heart out of your body and leave it at the doorstep as you walk into a crime scene. Because if not, then you can't do your job. That was blood splatter throughout the hallway. The neck was cut from ear to ear. That was a streak of blood, and it had dribbled down as if she was dying, as losing the power from her body. And in the end, grabbing her neck and holding her neck, trying to put it back together. The eerie marks of those blood prints were absolutely riveting.
Gerilyn's husband, Darren, tells investigators that his wife committed suicide.
He said he found the body around 7 o'clock. Of course, he grabbed her, so his fingerprints were on her. The fact that Darren's bloody prints were in and out around the body, we knew that he obviously was walking in and around it.
Darren says he couldn't find the phone, so he went to the neighbors to call 911. Police wonder why Darren was so quick to tell them his wife had committed suicide.
Why'd she kill herself, man? What?
He said suicide because he saw the gun. And he said he initially thought that she had shot herself.
But the wounds on Gerilyn's body tell a different story.
The way that her face had been just beaten in, you would have thought that she had run into a fight with some vicious madman.
Suggesting that Gerilyn went for the rifle to defend herself.
She grabs the gun, he grabs the front barrel of the gun.
But she is no match for her attacker. The killer slits her throat and then clubs her with the weapon.
The way that she was beaten unmercifully, you would have thought that she had been in a wreck of a train.
Much like the Gina Green crime scene, Clayton sees no sign of forced entry.
We thought to ourselves, there's a problem here, there's a pattern here.
And once again, the telephone is missing.
I remember very much having the feeling, gee, there's a lot of similarities here.
Whoever murdered Gerilyn Dotto walked effortlessly into her house. Trying to piece together her last known movements, Clayton searches Gerilyn's desk and finds her diary.
I cannot handle the pain and anger and disgust he puts on me when he curses me worse than he curses his own enemy. You never get used to the mean outburst and pushing around, slamming against walls, throwing things. Never.
There was so much foreshadowing of what would happen to her in that journal. She was so beautiful and so intelligent, and her life was surrounded with unhappiness.
Yo, where you been?
All of Gerilyn's friends spoke of incidents of abuse. He was a jealous husband.
Where you been?
I've been shopping. I told you I was going shopping.
I seen you smoking in the car.
I wasn't smoking in the car.
Police suddenly have a motive. Was the commonplace violence in the DeSoto home a precursor to murder?
Get on in there and cook me some dinner, woman. You heard me. Giddy up.
With a prime suspect in hand, do Baton Rouge investigators have enough evidence to prove that Darren DeSoto is their killer? The winter of 2002. Evil continues to lurk in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. 2 women are violently murdered in their homes, and evidence suggests the victims knew their attackers. When investigators find male DNA beneath the second victim's fingernails, a prime suspect emerges. The DNA belongs to Gerilyn's husband, Darren DeSoto.
Oh, man, I didn't do it. I was eating lunch, man.
Suspicion grows when Darren fails a voice stress analysis, a test that picks up increasing microtremors in the voice and detects when someone is lying.
He denied abusing his wife. He suggested that she might have committed suicide. Darren DeSoto did a lot of things that made police suspicious of him.
Suspect in our mind was her husband. They had a rocky relationship. And I was close to wanting to indict him from circumstantial evidence.
But investigators need concrete evidence that places Darren at the trailer when Gerilyn was murdered. They start with her computer. Gerilyn was a student at LSU, working on an assignment that morning.
She was on the computer at 11:42 a.m. in the morning. And at 11:43, she logged off the computer.
Telephone records show that an outgoing call was placed from the house phone at 11:44 a.m. Police learn that Darren is a shift worker at a local factory. His timesheet proves that he punched into work early the morning that Gerilyn was killed, punched out for lunch at 11, and returned to work at noon, leaving more than half an hour unaccounted for.
So then we went to him and we asked him, where were you from 11:30 to 12 o'clock?
I loved her, man.
He told us that he had gone to a local restaurant to buy a hamburger. I said, well, we asked him just a shot in the dark. How can you prove that?
But Darren has an alibi.
He said, oh, I paid for it with my Visa. And I said to him, what man would buy a hamburger with a credit card? Sure enough, we went to that restaurant, to their corporate office, pulled up their paperwork, and he had paid for the hamburger with his credit card. And that was like 11:50 or somewhere thereabout.
One possibility remains. Could Darren have left the restaurant, raced home, killed his wife, and punched back into work for noon?
There's no way humanly possible. It was about an hour and 10-minute ride. We drove it.
All right, Darren. Free to go.
We didn't have enough evidence to indict him. So we knew there may be another murder out there.
DNA testing further exonerates Darren DeSoto. The blood recovered from Gina Green's blouse doesn't match to Darren's DNA. If Darren isn't responsible for the murders, the question remains, who is? Armed with the killer's DNA, detectives search the national database. If the killer has a criminal record, police finally have their man. But the search comes up cold.
And the only thing that we had, although very powerful evidence, was an unknown male profile.
Baton Rouge investigators go back to the drawing board, desperate to make a connection between the murders.
We looked at the case in depth. We looked at crime scene photographs, the facts of the case. There were a lot of things we need to explore in terms of commonalities between the victims, things such as that.
Both victims live in the same area. Their phones were taken, and there was no sign of forced entry.
What is there between these two ladies that you need to know? I mean, there was nothing that suggested that they were close friends or they even knew each other. There has to be some connection, or you certainly want to eliminate that. Or is this really a random act by some unknown person?
Investigators are about to get their answer.
Hi there.
Pardon me, miss. My car just broke down on the way there.
On May 31st, 2002, The two seemingly separate murder cases are suddenly connected when Charlotte Murray Pace's roommate discovers one of the bloodiest crime scenes in Mississippi history. Two women are brutally murdered in their homes in Louisiana. Similarities between the crimes link the horrific acts. No closer to catching the killer, he strikes again. Baton Rouge detective Chris Johnson is dispatched to the scene. He turns to the evidence and begins to recreate the crime.
The blood in the hallway was transferred near the floor itself on the wall, which means that may have fought on the ground. She struggled a very long time to save up, fighting for her life. She had defense wounds on both sides of her hands. There was blood on all four walls in the bedroom, as well as the ceiling and also the floor as well.
The Pace autopsy enumerates 81 stab wounds. Although the cause of death is different, Johnson is struck by similarities to the previous crimes.
The perpetrator took trophies or items from the residence, Miss Pace's purse, her car keys, and also the handset from a cordless telephone from the resident was taken as well. We weren't sure if he's taking these things because they are trophies, or he's taking these things because he's trying to hide what he may have touched.
And once again, there is no sign of forced entry. The rape kit reveals a clear male DNA sample. The crime lab delivers news investigators have long suspected. The male DNA found on Charlotte Murray Pace's body matches to the bloodstain on Gina Green's blouse. Okay. Withholding their suspicions from the public until now, police make a grim announcement. They are chasing a serial killer.
The whole climate in Baton Rouge changed because of one man who had women terrified. Women were afraid to look out of their windows at night because they were afraid of what they would see staring back at them.
July 10th, 2002, a joint task force is formed, combining the efforts of 4 Baton Rouge police agencies and the FBI. With no suspects and the death toll rising, police turn to the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit for answers. Profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole revisits the crime scene to learn more about the killer.
You have to be on site, which is what we were, and it took days just to get an initial sense for the kind of offender that we were looking for, knowing that it was very likely he was going to do it again.
O'Toole tries to put herself into the mind of the killer. How is he selecting his victims?
The choice of them as a victim may have come pretty quickly. I'll do her because she's right here, right now.
How is he gaining access into the house?
These were women who were raised, don't open your door to strangers. But the reality is, everybody opens their door to a stranger. It also told me the offender came across as very non-threatening.
Hi there.
Pardon me, miss. My car just broke down up down the way there. Was we able to use your phone?
He was going into situations that were very high risk for him, but it was also exciting for him at the same time. And that told me something about his personality.
You know what? Come on in.
Great help.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
In the mindset of the killer, O'Toole begins to play out the crime. How is he choosing his weapon?
If you're highly impulsive as a serial killer and you didn't bring a weapon of choice with you, you just go and you do it, I'm a non-threatening individual was really a ruse to get to the victim, and then the mask comes off. It was my sense that this individual was highly impulsive. He could have thought of himself as omnipotent, all-powerful. He could have thought of himself as, that's what I want, that's what I'm going to get.
Police dig into the lives of the victims, looking for a common thread. They note that the women were all students at Louisiana State University, and they discover that Green once lived on the same street as Pace. Police follow up on their first concrete lead: geography.
The offender is comfortable in a certain area. We called it the hot zone. And we felt that there was a reason he went back there.
He wasn't sure that if he worked down there, if he went to school in that particular area, or he had family down there.
Investigators take no chances and beef up police presence in the hot zone. But the impulsive nature of the killer makes it difficult to anticipate his next attack.
I think he was constantly looking at women and thinking in terms of maybe her, could be her, but maybe her.
July 12, 2002. Pam Kinnamore leaves her antique store and heads home. At 10 o'clock, Detective Tommy Rice responds to a missing persons report at the Kinnamore residence. Byron Kinnamore has returned home to find his wife missing.
Park. I came home. I was just gone for a little bit.
So as I walk in, I see Mrs. Kinnamore's purse on the counter. Keys in the door, which I'm being told by the family is a routine occurrence, that she would do that absentmindedly, leave them in the door. The bells and whistles are going off.
Keys are in the door, lock your
The bad feeling that I got at the time was that here's a lady who just doesn't routinely have long periods of absences. She's always been accountable.
Evidence suggests that Pam Kinnamore was following her regular nightly routine. And what looks like blood on cotton balls is actually red nail polish.
It hits me like a car. There is an open window. Here you have a female in a position where she would be almost defenseless, nude, bathing. And being able to look through that window, you could tell that there were no one else home. Those curtains, not closed, told him all he needed to see.
Investigators publicize the case, hoping witnesses will come forward.
We get a call from a truck driver. He observed a white pickup truck with what he believed to be a nude female in the front seat. She appeared to be somewhat incapacitated or could have been intoxicated. He sees a white male driver. As he slows down to get a better look, the truck exits at Whiskey Bay. This might be the first tangible lead we've got that can identify a person.
Police search the area, hoping to find Pam Kinnamore alive. And then, a transportation worker testing soil erosion makes a grisly discovery near Whiskey Bay.
Wired phone cord that you'd have in any home in America. It was around her neck. It could have been used for control, where it could have been tightened at any time. Toenails had red toenail paint. Some of them didn't.
The date inside a wedding ring worn by the victim confirms her identity. She is Pam Kinnamore. But the recent murder puzzles investigators. Kinnamore lived outside of the killer's hot zone. She is a working mother and is older than the previous victims. Most disturbing, this time the killer moved the body.
Taking a woman who may have been nude out of her home in a very upscale residential neighborhood was consistent with that high-risk, high-thrill, and what would be dangerous and just mind-boggling to do to somebody else doesn't seem to really faze him.
Trying to follow the psyche of a killer of this nature is like putting together a jigsaw puzzle while blindfolded. As we were waiting to project when the next body would pop up, the next body would pop up. And we knew at that time that there was someone who knew our every move, and he was extremely hard to catch.
The killer is ramping up his efforts, always one step ahead of investigators. With no discernible MO, no viable suspects, and no hard evidence, police have nothing to go on. Women across Louisiana fear for their lives, and with good reason. Panic rules as the summer of terror blankets Baton Rouge. July 29, 2002. The attacker's DNA, retrieved from latest victim Pam Kinnamore, matches the samples found at the Pace and Green crime scenes, confirming that the killer has struck again. And worse, in dumping the body in Whiskey Bay, the killer has moved from his hot zone.
He was trying to cover his tracks. He was trying to lead us in the opposite direction.
But the location of the Kinnamore dumping ground, 60 miles from his last victim, baffles police.
We started looking at each other and realizing that, man, you know, this is very big.
The task force concentrates on the 3 crimes linked by DNA evidence: Green, Pace, and Kinnamore. A solid witness lead focuses the investigation on a white male driving a white pickup truck, but finding it is a huge task.
We were told there's over 280,000 of those in this state. And that's a lot of trucks to look at.
Every white male from age 20 to 60 became a suspect.
Police set up roadblocks, stopping every Caucasian male in a light-colored truck and asking for a DNA sample.
The serial killer's task force pre-swabbed more than 1,000, possibly 1,200 men looking for a suspect.
We just had utter chaos in this part of the country looking for the guy who was this serial killer.
Move along, move along.
For all their work, investigators get no DNA matches.
So based on the information we've got, which is small, the suspect is male, age 25 to 35 years.
Now investigators look to build a definitive profile of the killer.
I did feel that this was somebody who came across so normally, so in such a non-threatening way, who had the ability to be charming, who had the ability to be maybe glib. This is not somebody that's a loner.
A criminal analysis or profile is usually for internal police use only. But in desperation, the task force releases the information to the public, hoping it will generate tips. Investigators assume the killer is aware of the publicity surrounding the case. But the intense media glare doesn't seem to slow him down. November 18th, 2002. A police officer discovers an abandoned car outside of a cemetery. He learns that the vehicle belongs to a young woman, last seen visiting her mother's grave. When the body of a young woman is found in the woods near Lafayette, a city 60 miles from Baton Rouge, police fear the worst. The victim is so badly beaten, her father can only identify 23-year-old Tranisha Dene Colombe by her tattoos. Male DNA recovered from her body confirms their earlier suspicions. The recent murder is the work of the Baton Rouge serial killer.
The fact that he displaced from the hot zone to another part of the city, but now we got a subject that is mobile now.
By crossing racial lines, investigators can't help but feel the serial killer is deliberately taunting police.
I used a Scud missile analogy that this could happen anywhere to anybody now.
Now, white women were not safe, black women were not safe. It didn't matter where you lived in Louisiana, you weren't safe. Everyone was a target.
His ever-changing MO continues to challenge investigators.
If you were to look at any of the actions of him to try to find out if there were some type of consistency in how he operated, he threw us for a loop.
We don't have consistency. We have variation. It was actually the variation in these cases that became the consistency, if that makes sense.
March 13th, 2003. A local fisherman thinks he's made a great catch. Instead, he discovers the body of a young woman tangled in his net.
Pam Kinnamore's body was found in this same area, general area, but this was out in the water. Because of what's going on in Baton Rouge, we're not sure yet, of course, if it's related.
Unlike with his earlier victims, the killer is now covering his tracks.
Now, in the South, you've got to realize that you're dealing with a lot of humidity and you're dealing with a lot of heat here, you know. Decomposition in the South occurs quite rapidly. The DNA of a perpetrator is also part of the decomposition process.
Hey, we got an ID on the latest victim, LSU student.
The latest victim is 26-year-old Carrie Yoder, another LSU student living in the center of the serial killer's hot zone. To pull this off, the killer had to get through a massive police presence.
Obviously a determined individual to do just the brazen things that he did, and to be so determined that he would come right back into the area that he had taken 2 lives and take another.
For this offender to walk back into this area where there was such a law enforcement presence with that, again, that sense of confidence and that sense of arrogance was amazing.
This serial killer started acting more and more of playing mind games with us.
Police now have 5 samples of the killer's DNA, but are no closer to matching them to a suspect. Until one hard-working scientist makes a discovery in DNA technology that will break the case wide open. For 3 years, Baton Rouge investigators chase an impulsive, unpredictable serial killer. As the body count rises, so does police frustration.
We've pulled out every tool in the toolbox. And when are we gonna get that phone call? When are we gonna get that one dot, that one piece of this puzzle that's just gonna break it wide open?
Forensic technician George Shiro turns to an advancement in genetic technology to analyze the serial killer's DNA.
Essentially what I ended up doing was examining 21,000 profiles. And one of the markers that we looked at was called D21S11.
You guys clear that off, clear that off. I want to show you something.
When I examined the ancestry groups and the ethnic groups that were associated with this, what I found was that I found it occurring more times in people who were of African descent than Caucasian.
We might be looking for the wrong guy.
The DNA of the person they were looking for is that of a black person who has some small mixture of something else, like American Indian and Caucasian. I was somewhat shocked.
A very, very powerful development for us. When this information came, that really was a turning point for us.
Turning their attention away from Caucasian men, police expand their search and look to African-American suspects that fit the FBI profile.
We had received some information from another law enforcement agency in St. Martinville that said there was an encounter by this woman that had actually been attacked by a black male.
Well, I had just gotten home with my groceries and was putting it away.
Diane Alexander tells investigators about an incident in her home 2 years earlier.
She was preparing to go to work, and she heard a knock on the door, and she went to the door.
Pardon me, ma'am, I'm really sorry to bother you. I'm looking for the Montgomerys, and I thought they told me 42, but by any chance you have a phone I might be able to use, or do you know where they live?
I'm sorry, I don't, but...
And she saw this very, very good-looking man at the door, soft-spoken And she remarked at his physical appearance and not threatening, polite and gracious, asking for help.
Thank you very much, man. Really kind.
There was nothing that he projected to her that spelled out, this is a problem, he's dangerous.
Y'all done with my phone?
I wish I was, man, but I can't seem to find Montgomery's in here anywhere. Would your husband happen to know who they are, maybe?
My husband isn't home.
That's when the mask came off.
He coolly told her that he'd been watching her. He attempted to rape her, but he couldn't maintain an erection, which enraged him even more. Then he cut her phone cord and tried to strangle her. At this point, Alexander's son, Herman, returned home.
I got out the car and I heard a noise from inside, and I ran in. I saw Ma, and I ran outside, and just someone just drove off in a truck.
Diane suffered a serious skull fracture, keeping her in hospital for 5 days. But she'll never forget her attacker.
He's got really bushy eyebrows. Really bushy.
After 3 years, do investigators finally have an eyewitness?
His eyes, were they dark, light?
They were dark.
We said, Chief, whoever assaulted Miss Alexander is the person responsible for your murders in Baton Rouge.
The sketch is released to the public.
Really, within a couple of minutes of him holding up the composite and giving the behavioral characteristics, a call came into the command center saying, this is who you're describing.
From a series of mugshots, Diane Alexander finally has a chance to identify the man who tried to kill
See if
her.
you can pick out the man who attacked you. Take your time.
The mugshot belongs to Derrick Todd Lee. A petty criminal from Zachary, Louisiana, with a history of stalking and peeping Tom charges. With Lee's DNA already on file in Zachary, Baton Rouge investigators compare it to the samples collected at the Green, Kinnamore, Pace, and Yoder crime scenes. The match is irrefutable.
We finally got the break. We finally got the match. We finally know who he is. That's the guy that has caused so much pain. That is the guy that has taken so many lives. And that is the guy that you're getting ready to put in jail.
I think quite a few of us grown men shed tears.
This had finally come to the end. And he was not going to take anyone else's life.
Derrick Todd Lee, Baton Rouge Police Department, come out.
But when police move in to arrest Derrick Todd Lee at his home in Baton Rouge, he's already gone.
And that, I think, was the other side of it, that, you know, until you caught them, that nothing was going to change. I mean, there would just be more cases and more victims.
DNA analysis confirms the Baton Rouge serial killer is Derrick Todd Lee. But when police move in, they discover that Lee has fled the state. On May 26, 2003, the task force publicly names the killer.
A suspect has been identified in the homicides of Gina Green, Charlotte Murray Pace, Pam Kinnamore, Danae Cologne, and Carrie Yoder.
Launching a nationwide manhunt, police track down Lee's friends and family.
We discovered that Derrick was married. He had a wife and also a son. He also had a girlfriend.
Investigators learn that Lee remains in contact with his girlfriend. Tracing their phone calls will lead them straight to Lee's location.
All right.
But police have to keep Lee on the line long enough to pinpoint his whereabouts.
Hello?
Lee is quickly suspicious.
Are you with cops right now? Are the cops listening to...
After a short conversation, he's on to the ruse.
Well,
Are the cops listening to this call?
But not before police can trace the call to Atlanta. The noose around Derrick Todd Lee's neck is tightening.
Now, there's a serial killer in Atlanta, Georgia, and realizing that he could strike there.
Sunday morning, this past Sunday morning, we began receiving information that we may have a fellow into our neighborhood by the name of Derrick Todd Lee. He is suspected of murdering 5 women in Louisiana.
Can they find Lee before he kills again? Detective Johnson arrives in Atlanta to assist local police. He checks out the hotel from where Lee called his girlfriend.
Like I said, he was renting a room, but he's obviously gone now.
He knew we was searching for him, so he didn't stay very many places very long, but eventually we got lucky again.
Johnson.
And I credit citizens. I called in the task force and hotline and said, hey, we know where he is.
Okay, move in. Move in, don't wait for me.
Police track Lee to a location in the suburbs.
Police, freeze, down! Down to the ground, down to the ground! Hands above your head! Let's go. Derrick Todd Lee, you're under arrest. Let's go, in the car.
Derrick Todd Smith said, Detective Chris, I'm tired. It's pretty profound, you know, because I think he's referring to the fact that now he's dealing with the fact that he killed these women.
The evidence against Derrick Todd Lee is overwhelming. A knife Lee pawned is matched to the stab wounds on Charlotte Murray Pace's body. The phone cord found around Pam Kinnamore's neck is the same cord used to choke Diane Alexander. Lee had access to a white pickup truck owned by his girlfriend's uncle. But the nail in Lee's coffin is the silent witness, DNA. It is irrefutable. At his trial, Diane Alexander provides the most powerful emotional testimony.
She looked him eye to eye, and she said to him, I will never forget that face, and I'll never forget what you told me when you were on top of me, trying to rape me, when you said to me, I've been watching you. That, in and of itself, sent a chilling effect through the whole courtroom. Derrick Todd Lee is now on death row in Angola, Louisiana. He's now being watched, and he will be watched until the state of Louisiana respectfully puts him to death.